So, this is still pretty fresh, and I'm absolutely fuming. For context, I, 38F, lost my daughter 2 years ago in a car accident. She was only 14, and ever since that day, I've kept her room exactly as she left it. I don't go in there often, but just knowing that it's there, untouched, brings me comfort. It's like having a piece of her still with me. Her posters, her art supplies, her clothes, all of it is still there. I can't bring myself to change it. Now, fast forward to a few months ago, my brother, 34M, and his new wife, 29F, had some financial issues after blowing a ton of money on a ridiculous, extravagant wedding. They asked if they could stay with me while they saved up for a place. Even though I wasn't thrilled about it, I agreed because, well, family, right? At first, things were fine, until recently. I noticed my sister-in-law making comments about how I shouldn't keep a shrine, and how it's time to move on. I ignored her because frankly, it's none of her damn business how I grieve my child. My brother mostly stayed quiet, but I could tell she was getting into his ear. Anyway, I came home from work last week to a literal nightmare. I walked into my daughter's room, and I kid you not, they had taken down all her posters, boxed up her stuff, and had started repainting the walls a hideous beige. They had moved in a bunch of generic furniture, hung up new curtains, and were apparently turning it into a guest room. I lost it, screaming, crying, the whole thing. I asked them what the hell they were thinking, and their response. My sil had the nerve to tell me they did it as a favor, to help me move on, because it was unhealthy for me to keep the room as it was. I was shaking with rage. I told them to pack their stuff and get the hell out of my house immediately. My brother tried to calm me down, saying they meant well and were only trying to help me let go. He even tried to make me feel guilty by saying they had nowhere else to go right now, as if that would make me suddenly forgive them for destroying the last piece of my daughter I had left. I told them I didn't care and that they had crossed an unforgivable line. Now, my whole family is divided. My parents think I overreacted and say I'm being heartless for kicking them out. They keep saying they were just trying to help, they didn't mean any harm, and that I'm being too harsh because people grieve differently. They're even suggesting I apologize and let them move back in. My brother is still texting me asking me to reconsider, saying they're in a tough spot, but all I see when I look at him is betrayal. So, AITAH for kicking them out and refusing to even consider letting them back in after what they did. My wife, Anne, and I have been married for 13 years. I am 43, and she is 46. We do not have children. When we first began dating, nobody could make me happy like Anne. She always seemed to know exactly the right thing to say to me when I was down. But over the past decade or so, she has really started to show her true colors, and a lot of what her ex-husband said to me about her has begun to make more sense. For example, I have a very high-stress job. People bring me problems, and I fix those problems. But when I get home, 9 times out of 10, Anne just has more problems to throw onto my plate. She doesn't work, so she's free to do anything she wants to solve said problems during the day, but lately she has even begun making lists of things that she wants me to do after I work all day. But my biggest issue with Anne is that I can't ever really open up to her about anything. Whenever I talk about something bad that happened to me, she'll either try to one-up me or agree with the person who wronged me. Last Friday, I had a horrible day. There was an enormous problem at work that basically all fell on my shoulders to solve. When I was crossing the street after work, I had a green signal and a bicycle blew through a red and side-clipped me. The cyclist yelled expletives at me and then rode away. I thought about calling the police because it was technically a hit and run, but there was probably nothing they could do. When I got home, desperate, I talked to Anne about what happened. She listened and then immediately took the cyclist's side. I reiterated that the cyclist ran through a red light, to which she responded that cyclists aren't obligated to stop. When I told her she was wrong and tried to put the issue to rest, she began frantically Googling laws. She found that in our state, they can treat lights like a stop sign. She began triumphantly reading the law to me loudly, word for word, getting louder when I kept trying to tell her that I wasn't interested. At the end of her spiel, she gave me this incredibly arrogant look as if she was right. I just stared at her for a second and said that my life would be better without her. She got incredibly upset, shrieked at me until her voice was hoarse, and then packed a bag and left to stay with her parents. She has texted me all weekend demanding an apology, but I haven't responded. Did I do something unforgivable here? I, 17M, have a pretty blended family. Mom had me with my dad. They broke up when I was a baby. My mom had my half-sister Macy, 15F, with a guy named Aaron. They weren't really together from what I know, but they shared custody of Macy her whole life, just like my parents shared custody of me before Dad died when I was 5. When I was 4, my mom started dating her first husband, husband number 1, and had my 3 other half-siblings Daniel, 10M, Lila, 9F, and Kenna, 7F. My mom and her first husband got divorced, and 2 years ago she remarried. Her husband, husband number 2, has 3 kids with his ex, Holden, 13M, Lacey, 11F, and Kyrie, 9F. My half-siblings go to their dads every other week. My step-siblings go to their mom every other week. I'm the only kid who hasn't got my dad to go to. Because of this, my mom expected me and her husband to be super close and that I'd accept him as my new dad. Even after I didn't accept husband number 1 as my dad, she believed husband number 2 would be different. Not to me. Dad is still my only dad, and I don't see husbands number 1 or number 2 as my parent. Have a close relationship with my extended family on Dad's side. I have grandparents who live 10 minutes from me. I have 3 aunts who live within 30 minutes of me. 2 uncles who live less than an hour away. 24 cousins who live within those distances of me. LOL. I have cousins of my dad who are close to us as well. There are times when my half-siblings are with their dads that I'll ask to be with someone in Dad's family. Mom doesn't like that I do it, but she does let me sometimes. But she really tries to push me to spend time with her husband or his family when my half-siblings are gone, or if I'm the only kid in the house. 2 weeks ago, my half-siblings were all gone to their dad's houses. My step-siblings wanted to spend time with husband number 2's family. Which makes sense since it's their family too. I asked Mom to let me spend the day with my grandpa since he was doing something cool. Mom looked surprised and told me there was a whole party going on at her house and I should be there with my family. I told her I wanted to be, which is why I was asking to be with Grandpa. Mom told me I was being intentionally ignorant and that I knew she was talking about her house. We got into a fight and she said I never willingly spend time with her husband or his family and I never prioritize my family. I told her she never expects my half-siblings to and I shouldn't be treated differently because my dad died. I said her husband didn't become my dad and his family didn't become my family just because my dad died. I told her they don't mean more to me than they do to my half-siblings. Mom told me it's different. She said I shouldn't feel this way. I told her if it was up to me I'd never spend time with them. I'd spend time with my real family.